Hi, everybody. This is Danielle Goodrich, the chair of the Washington County Republican Party. And I wanted to get on here on Tusker News, news that matters most to Washington County Republicans, and talk about an issue that is going through the Johnson City Commission right now. I wrote an article, it was in the paper today, about the Aquatic Center and the property tax hike. And I wanted to bring somebody on here who was a commissioner for 12 years and also a former Johnson City mayor. I wanted to bring on somebody who has experience in the city commission to talk about this issue. So with me today is former Mayor Pete Paduch. Pete, come on on.
Well, thank you for having me, Danielle. I appreciate all that you've done. And, I read the paper this morning and you hit it right on the head of what's going on and what needs to be done. I was very impressed. And if I saw something I didn't think was right, I would tell you, but you were right on target. So thank you.
Well, thank you for coming on, Pete. Why do you think the city is proposing this new aquatic center right now? And why do you think it's becoming such a public issue?
Uh, I look beyond just the swimming pool. I think the city's got some serious financial problems. They had a $55 million fund balance in 1 year in 2025. They paid out to the sexual assault victims, Sean Williams, 30 some million, and that dropped their fund balance down to a really low number of 25 million all in 1 year. And I think the state comptroller and those people are looking and saying, whoa, wait a minute, you got to get that back up. So they need something to rally support for a tremendous tax increase. And I think it just so happens that the pool's the item that Kathy Ball and the commissioners are trying to use as their fake project. And I shouldn't say fake, but something that realistically the way they present it makes no sense. And I think you spelled that out pretty well.
So there is no firm start date for this project. Do you think that's problematic?
Oh, absolutely. And I tell people, would you go out if you were looking to buy a start a home, Danielle, and you say, well, I'm going to get it in 3 years, but I'm going to go ahead and get the mortgage today? Well, nobody would do that. Okay, you get the mortgage when the loan starts, and that'd be the same way with the aquatic center. They need that cash for the city coffers, and so if they get it, it helps out tremendously to cover some of the problems they've created with some of their misspending and poor management. And this is what they've got to do. I mean, it's absolutely horrible that they're placing it on the back of the taxpayers. And there's a lot of people that, that really impacts them. And this is a project that doesn't make any sense. And I think you spelled that out pretty well in the paper.
And I know you're known for doing your research and coming to the table well informed on issues. And you've done your research on what the aquatic center in Kingsport looks like for them. Can you talk to that?
I certainly, and that's the first thing I always did when I was commissioner. You hear a lot of things, you listen to it, but then you have to have facts, not just opinions. So I went to their budget of 2025 and got the aquatic center, that they were short in revenue on the aquatic center $2.5 million. Okay, that means the taxpayers over there are shoveling out $2.5 million to support this project. And so obviously, if they're losing money, we're talking about spending 50, 60, 70 million on aquatic center. So we also can lose $2.5 million. The city's made some terrible mistakes in the past. They bought Buffalo Valley Golf Course, and they were going to make money. Well, guess what? They finally closed it down, lost it. I think it was $8.5 million. Okay, they've done one thing after the other that really doesn't make a lot of sense. The Millennium Center, which is here in Johnson City, and I was on the commission when this came about, and I questioned what we were doing. The public doesn't know that all the years the city kept it open, it was about $1 million loss. Thank goodness the university did us a favor and said, we'll take the building off your hand for a bargain. So we spent, 15, 20 million on the building, sold it to them for $6, but we got out of the $1 million debt. So it's one thing after the other that they've mismanaged, whether it's Walnut Street. The budget was 25 million. They ended up spending 45. Once again, the city manager and the commissioners didn't manage the project. It all adds up. And
And,
I'm
and
not
this
I'm not interested. I don't think anybody's interested in starting something that Kingsport is losing $2.5 million a year on, and we're going to take some of their cut. It's illogical. It makes no sense whatsoever. Remember, we got a water park in Jonesboro. They got one down in Pigeon Forge. Kingsport's got theirs. Now we're going to get one. Makes no sense.
I agree with you. And they, even in their feasibility study, said that it would be operating at a loss. Can you speak to that?
Well, certainly, I think all you have to do, you never know what's going to happen. I've got a business. You never know what's going to happen until you get into the process. But when you borrow the money, and they're talking about borrowing it 2 or 3 years before they even start the project. If Kingsport's losing that much money, you're going to do the same thing. Where's the logic in that? It makes no sense whatsoever.
And if the facility operates at a deficit, who ultimately covers the cost?
Well, it falls right back on, I'm going to say, property tax owners, because they're talking about raising property taxes 28 cents. And then they're going to designate 8 cents of that, I think I read, just for the aquatic center. Okay, so you're putting it on the backs of the people, and it's a project out in the future. They need the money today. And that's why this, I think, is being put out there. They poorly managed the Freedom Hall pool. Kathy Ball and the city commissioners have known for years. You have to do maintenance. If you get a little roof leak, what do? You get it fixed. They just ignored it. Okay, so if they can't manage one pool, what makes you think they're going to be able to manage the aquatic center? It's completely illogical what they're doing. You hit it right on the head in your editorial op-ed. Fix the pool that they've got for $750 million, whatever it turns out to be. Great investment, and you move forward. Your idea of the referendum, I hadn't thought about it. You mentioned it. It makes perfect sense if they're that set on doing something. Don't tie the hands of future commissioners by what you do today. And you have to remember, we're going to have an election this fall, and that's when we should have the referendum if that's what they really want to do. And we'll get some new commissioners possibly, too. Okay? And then you have to understand the ones that are there only have 2 more years. So basically, when it gets time to start this project, the ones that created the problem could be going out. The city manager could decide, this ain't going to work. And so she retires, they don't run again. And now you've handed this mess over to new people. So at the very least is let's have the referendum as you suggested. I wouldn't do it, but if that's what you want to do, I can live with that. Let the new commissioners, after they get elected, decide what they want to do and put it before the public. And I know what's going to happen there. Okay, years ago, when I got started, they wanted to build an art center and a convention center, gigantic. I was running ads. I said, this makes no sense. Oh, we have to do it. Okay, and so it came to a referendum because it was a sales tax, and that's required by law. And some of the prominent business people came to me. I wasn't one of the prominent ones at that time. I've been in business here my whole life. They came to me, Mr. Parker, who owned the Restonic bedding company, a well-established company nationally. And he's a very smart man. He said, I've talked to other business leaders. This is nuts. So they ran ads. We had the referendum. I think it was something like 85% of the people said, no way. If you had a referendum on this project, I dare say it would be 90% of the people would say, no way, based upon what Kingsport's doing alone.
And they're talking, a property tax increase now, but what impact could a project of this size have on future city budgets and priorities? Do you think this will lead to future tax increases just to sustain it?
Of course. That's what's happened now. A few years ago, they raised taxes. Now they've come back and they need 28. You have to understand it's all a result of the management of the city. You know what I mean? They did the settlement with Sean Williams' trial, which they should never have done. I've talked to U.S. attorneys, local attorneys. They said you'd never do that. If you got 4 or 5 cases pending, you don't settle one of them because they'll use that against you. It's either all or none. Well, they made a terrible mistake and did that. And they drained, they said at the time, oh, it's not going to impact us. Well, yeah, it did. Your reserves went from 55 million to 25 million. And you know how long it took to get that 55 million? 100 years. Johnson City's been here 100 years, and they finally saved $55 million, and they gave away 30 of it and still have cases out there, and they're going to be settled. And I would bet you're going to be paying more money. So when you have financial problems, you don't go do new projects or take vacations. You just try to maintain what you've got and work through it. But it's going to take some good management. I'm not sure we have that. It's going to take some commissioners that are more open-minded and willing to listen to the public. And I'm telling you, what you wrote in the paper today is spot on. If they're just dead set on having it, 3 people or 5 people, let's let the public decide. They'll tell you you're nuts. We don't want any part of it. I would bet highly on that one.
So there's a hearing tomorrow. It's a second reading at 7 a.m. What would you tell people, citizens who want to be heard on this issue? What would your advice be?
Well, the first thing you have to understand is the commissioners are influenced by the city manager. They're only as good as she is. I really do believe that because they've got jobs. She's doing this full time. And if she's proposing this, she obviously doesn't quite understand finance. And so if you really want to make a difference, you show up like several people did here recently to talk about the data center and this, and you let your voice be heard. If they let you speak, it's sort of hard in 3 minutes. Okay, but you call them, you talk to them, but that's still minimal. That they have to understand, 5 commissioners, that they should be doing what's in the best interest for the public. And believe me, somebody that's struggling to make ends meet, this is a huge increase, and it doesn't solve the problem of management. And I gave you several examples. They started Walnut Street, like they're talking about starting this building in a couple of years. They started Walnut Street in 2021, I think it was. And it's still not finished. They're still doing a sinkhole down there by Harmon Ice and Coal. That's 5 years later. And it was 20 million over budget. So it's never going to work out. I'm in the construction business. I built buildings. I lease them to the state. You can't project what something's going to cost you in 2 years to start. You don't know what steel is going to happen. Whoever thought gasoline would be $5 a gallon? It just happened. And so it's just suicide what they're doing to us. And does it impact them? Well, they all want to be teammates or team players, but it's not fair. They're not going to be here when this starts. Don't put it on a new commissioners and dig them a hole. And then when it fails, say, well, look what they did. I just think that's terrible.
We like to keep these to about 15 minutes, and we're getting close to that time now. Are there any closing thoughts, anything at all that you would like to bring to the attention of the folks who will be listening to this?
I think they should read your editorial, and the city commissioners should follow it. I've never seen anything more well written than what you wrote. If you're dead set on doing this, let's let the public decide it in a referendum this fall after the election. Then let's get the project started and finish the pool at Freedom Hall that you abandoned and didn't do your job on, and get that taken care of. To me, that's a priority because those kids need to know how to swim, the swim team and whatever. It's terrible that the city manager let it get in that condition. Why didn't they budget and do it years ago? She just didn't. But that's all I'll leave it with. But I do appreciate you having me on.
Thank you so much, Pete, for coming on. We really appreciate your experienced position on this and your words of advice. And to everybody who's listening, you can be heard too tomorrow at 7 a.m. at the City Commission meeting. So we're asking for you to go out and be heard on this issue. Thank you so much, and God bless.
Thank you.